Hey humans, my name is Tom Jacobs and I'm on the web at tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, energy worker, channel, medium. I do lots of stuff with cool rocks and crystals. At tdjacobs.com, that's my main site. There's a lot of tools there for various kinds of things to support your spiritual consciousness development. And then healingsuicide.com is an invitation to learn more about soul and how it understands your human life and how to deal with the difficult kinds of emotions that can sometimes inspire us to consider suicide. Gotta check the tech. It's Mercury retrograde right on my midheaven, so you gotta check. So this is the Cancer 2020 Sun forecast. Now, I do a subscription service where there's a group of people who pay to kind of be in the inner circle every month, and they get a class almost every month and channel meditations and perk rates on all the things I do, plus these forecasts. I made the Sun forecast available to all just to get my teaching out there a little more widely. And what subscribers get is the forecast Jupiter on out, which covers the backdrop of the outer planets, how that changes over time, and what to look out for every month, and how to understand it in terms of the evolution of your consciousness, but also the collective. And then also forecast 2 is Mercury, Venus, Mars. And so anyways, you can check all that out and subscribe monthly or yearly at tdjacobs.com. But this is the Sun and Cancer forecast. So what I'm going to start with is the transition from Gemini to Cancer. And this is applicable whenever any planet moves there. I'm talking about kind of the shift of energy or the archetypal refocusing that we might experience when any planet goes from Gemini to Cancer. And of course, the Sun, I consider, well, I think of it as the giant flashlight in the sky, putting attention on a theme or a way of being. So let's start with Gemini. Gemini is, of course, about new information and new things. It's the third sign of the zodiac, and it's about finding out new things that we need to know, but we may not know we need to know them. We may simply realize there are a lot of things we don't know, so we have to explore. We have to ask questions and check 7 books, even if only 2 of them have something valuable at that moment. Or ask 10 questions, and maybe 6 of them are crappy questions. But Gemini is about, experimenting and finding out and how to find things out. So there's a learning component to Gemini, but also learning how to learn better sometimes, right? There's a thing about increasing the data you have, asking more questions, gathering data. And during the month of Gemini, it's normal to be a little distracted by certain things or to be overstimulated. To not necessarily be able to really focus. That's not abnormal for Gemini energy, because this is the lens of the zodiac, through which new things occur to us, or we overhear something, right? Stimulation. We misheard something, we read something, and it got us thinking, or little breadcrumb trails of, I looked up this thing about sharks, and it said this thing, and I didn't know that, so I looked up this other thing, and it just, and there was 4 a.m. and I had read about 60 things. The point isn't if you were to remember all those things. The point is that you're open-minded, and you are open, you're exploring, you're taking in new information, or at least giving new information a chance to affect you. Like if you look up something about sharks and it does nothing, then it doesn't. Then it does nothing. But if you look it up and it makes you think of 3 other things, and you look those things up, and then 60 things later, it's 4 a.m., you're being changed by the information that you're opening to. So when the Sun is in Gemini, it is obvious that we need to pay attention to what is surrounding us. That's one way to look at this. Where am I? Oh, the world. Oh, yes, this furniture. And oh, yes, this machine or whatever. To get to know the environment, right, is one way to think about a Gemini time, or a time of Gemini. Like I said, there's a lot of information, potentially more than we need. Well, when the Sun or any planet gets to Cancer, we start to have a sense of what we need. In the 4th phase, or 4th part of the story of the zodiac, in Gemini, it's like, what's here? What's there? What's useful? I don't know. How do you spell things? Can I count? It's like all these different things about numbers and words and new data and opening eyes and jaw dropping and all that stuff. Then in Cancer, it's like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, the world is full of information. I just learned through the Gemini process that there are all sorts of things I could learn and so many things to study and so many things to know and explore and, you know, click through till it's 4 a.m. and I have not learned 60 things, but I'm, you know, really impacted by that first thing from about sharks. Anyway, what do I need to know? So when the focus gets into Cancer, it's about needs. We think of it as nesting and rooting and family, and it is. And it's about heritage. It's about where our attention being put on where we come from, who we think we are based on where we come from. Now that could be, well, you know, my parents were like this, or my family of origin, or the people who raised me are like this, or, you know, the town I'm from, or the culture I grew up in. It can be that kind of thing. And it can also be, you know, for 400 years, people in my family have done this profession or have lived in this part of the world or something like that. It can be a heritage thing. It can be a tribal thing where people band together because of certain similarities. And that could be political or ethnic, religious, you know, we would say racial, but I mean like, you know, whatever, different skin colors or whatever. We're all one race, which is why I kind of hesitated before I said racial, but based in genealogical characteristics and histories, right? We might group ourselves together, or we learn through the lens of Cancer where we feel we belong or where we do belong, like who we fit with. So it is about family issues, yet that's one layer of it. It's also about you the people who are close to you in a personal way, friends who have become like family, right? That kind of idea. So the focus goes from the world is full of information in Gemini to, wait, how can I stabilize, nest, root, ground? How can I create a place of belonging for myself in Cancer? And that turns into, what do I need? What do I need to nest? What's important to, you know, cohere this group? What's important to have us stick together? Like what, you know, how can we create a group? How can we maintain the ties within this group? How can we settle down together or create a space so we can settle down? These are all the concerns of Cancer. Now, in my view, anything working through the lens of Cancer can be a little touchy, right? It's ruled by the moon. And touchy, think about reactivity, but essentially that's an indicator that you're sensing and feeling things. So any planet working through the lens of Cancer is also about feeling, and with the sun there, putting a light on or putting your attention on feelings. What you feel as you live your life and proceed about your day, but also the nature of the kinds of feelings you are dealing with on a consistent basis. Like this person tends to be a little depressive, or this person is dealing with grief, or this person is edgy and worried about the future, whatever. This person's antsy, or, you know, anxiety, whatever. But what kinds of feelings you have in that moment, or what you are prone to feel. So the sun going into Cancer will make you more aware of these things, put the light of conscious awareness, and make things very obvious during this month. Now, it is in some part of the world the beginning of summer. We have the longest daylight. It's the summer solstice when the sun enters Cancer. And the winter solstice, when the sun enters Capricorn, is the least amount of daylight, and the summer solstice in this part of the world, in the northern hemisphere, is the most. And is the most. So a lot of people, you know, get really into the solstice and the celebration, and there is this, you know, connection that it's important to have a connection to if not the kind of like 8 pagan holidays, I'm not saying it correctly, or the 4, at least the solstices and the equinoxes, to have a sense of that, to know that you are part of life on Earth. This has value too, you know. So right as this solstice happens, we have a new moon eclipse. So it's a different kind of solstice. So the sun changes signs, and this happens to be today, Saturday, June 20th at 2:43 p.m. Pacific time. It's like 3:30 right now, so I'm just a little afterward. Because I had the time of the new moon in my head, I thought I had a few hours. So we have this new moon solar eclipse. So normally, the most light, right, and at least in the northern hemisphere, the summer solstice, and people celebrate. Well, it's a new moon in Cancer at 0:21, 0 Cancer and 21 minutes, 0 degrees and 21 minutes. So within a few hours, right, within a third of a day, you have this new moon. New moons are always about quiet. This is a new moon solar eclipse, so the solar principle is quieted, so it's even more quiet. So if you had plans and you didn't do them because it didn't feel right, that's fine. Maybe you had, I know most of the world's on lockdown, but maybe you had something that you were going to do or celebrate or something, but it's a quiet time. And I wouldn't say that every year the sun going into Cancer has to be a quiet time. I wouldn't say that at all. I'd say the sun going into Capricorn calls for being a quiet time, but the sun going into Cancer is, kind of like the astrological year equivalent of a full moon, right? It's like the most light. Okay, so let's talk about this new moon. First of all, there are 2 Cancer new moons. The first one at 0 Cancer 21 is the solar eclipse, next to the transiting North Node in Gemini. And then there is a second one I'll do at the end of this video on July 20th at 28 and about a half degrees Cancer. So anyway, this month, 2 Cancer new moons, and I'll frame that when I get to the third one, to the second one, the third lunation, because between them we'll have a Capricorn full moon too. So let me do this thing here and pull up the chart for you, and we'll say, yeah, there you go. Hey, okay, so here it is. You are screen sharing. I did it right. Okay, so June 20th, 11:42 p.m. Pacific time. I just make these charts up for where I live. Just ignore the houses. So the thing that they're down here, the sun and the moon at 0, right, 21. And of course, you can see the transiting node at 29, Gemini right there. So it's a new moon, but it's an eclipse. I always consider eclipses turning points. I don't always, spend a lot of time analyzing them like a lot of astrologers do, but they are turning points because anything involving the transiting nodes offers a turning point. And so some people find great effect with every eclipse. Some people may not find effect with every eclipse. I'm kind of in that latter group. But this idea of the solar principle being quieted somewhat, right? We live all the time with sun and moon in some relationship to each other. At a solar eclipse and the moon eclipses the sun, that principle is quieted. So it's not just this beginning of this Cancerian time, it's this sensate or sensory experience. All new moons have that kind of navigate in the dark, perhaps bump into things. You don't quite know what's going on or what you're doing. All of them have this quality. This is even more so. So in the channel meditation that I provided for subscribers, and also you could also, last month I started putting each of these every 2 weeks up on Patreon as well. So you can actually become a patron of me on Patreon and get these, every 2 weeks for a small fee. Or you can subscribe monthly or yearly and get them too. So I do these 30-minute channel meditations from Ascended Master Jehudi, who's also known as Hermes, Thoth, Merlin, Saint Germain. And the way that Jehudi approached this was to lead, and so I'll just kind of describe this as the theme that I'd like to talk about. Leading the listener into this, it's almost kind of a Hermes or Merlin-like trickster energy, leading you into letting yourself be disarmed by really relaxing into your body. And the way that Hermes is focusing on this lunation is the opportunity to sense without knowing. So to sense what you need to do without understanding what's happening. To feel yourself moving towards something. Think about a little shoot that comes out of the, it looks for the light. You go into some forests and you see the trees on angles, or the branches are, reaching for the light. Think about that idea of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm certainly observing myself guided or nudged or called or magnetized or pulled to do something. So there's this energy of, it's important, Jehudi says it's important to get in your body to sense what emotions are stored there, so that when you work through them, then you have access to your body as the container of consciousness that supports you along your whole human journey. But he's inviting us to go back through our emotions, to go back through, to say, I'm willing to listen to my body, and say it enough times, and to really put your attention in and on your body through this grounding process, in order to be able to hear what your body says to you through feeling. And that will lead you to unlock and perhaps memories and things that are locked up in your body. So that's the focus of the channel meditation. With the lunation, it is square. Well, it's conjunct Vesta, and I think a lot about Vesta these days, and I think of it as something that inspires devotion, not for 3 days or a month, but something that is very important to you. Ultimately, it's being of service, but it may not look that way at first, or when you first think about it, you might not term it or frame it that way. But something's so important that you care about it. It matters to you. You can't joke about it. You can't do it halfway. It's all or nothing. So it either takes a lot of time, energy, and focus, or you don't do it. So here's a new moon. Can you focus on your body and the emotional, the grounds upon which you sense emotion, the physical feeling, letting the emotional waves occur? Because all emotions are waves that are trying to break so that energy is released. Can you listen? Can you devote yourself to an inner quiet, is how I'm thinking of it. So you have that sense. Okay. This lunation is also square Mars in Pisces, conjunct Persephone in Pisces. So Mars is, there may be tension from the side. It's out of sign, but there may be tension from the side. It's still, it's within, 5 degrees, a little over 4 degrees, 4.5 degrees. So, or maybe it's 5. Anyway, no math right now. Forget that. So Mars says action. Somebody might want you to do something, but you're in your quiet place. You're in your special place. You're in your happy place. But Persephone says that action, or the person who's wanting you to do something or be something, kind of needs to abduct him or herself into doing it for the self. So like, let's say that you finally get everything organized to do some kind of ritual for this new moon eclipse, or even the solstice. Let's say you get something organized. And let's say that it just required you to get a bunch of little details in order and clear your schedule and do some things. And then somebody's being needy, or somebody's calling out to you from across the house or the neighborhood, or the phone keeps ringing, something like that. It's probable that you need to maintain your focus to do what you need to do for yourself. That will be the Cancerian new moon opportunity, focusing on yourself. And if that requires that you unlearn notions of self-interest being automatically selfish, well, then you're hereby officially invited and authorized to lose those ideas. Putting yourself first means ensuring that when you can do stuff for others, it is of the highest quality, and it is based in integrity and self-respect. So be there for others, but not willy-nilly where you're leaking energy. So someone might need something, but they kind of maybe need to grow up. Persephone within a person, when it shows up, no matter the person's experience or age and years, is quite often about 12 or 13 or 14 years old. Not stupid, but not wise yet. Maybe smart and clever and, I can't remember the other word. Mercury retrograde. What have you done to my word bank? I got to move on, and it's so hard. Jeez. I got to move on. I got to give the people the video. I literally can't let go of it. Okay, great. Steam will start coming out of my ears presently. Okay, gotta forget it. Gotta move on. I gotta give you the rest of the video. Jeez Louise. Anyway, so not maybe green, but smart, but green. So anyway, not experienced. And so that person might need to do something for him or herself, right? Instead of waiting for you to be the person who delivers the nurturing, safety, guidance, whatever, provides whatever. I'm gonna think about that word all night. Okay, whatever it may be. Okay, so what else? I think that's it. Well, it's a wide square. It's about 9 degrees, a little under 9 degrees to Chiron. And I just thought I'd mention it. It's square Lilith, a little over 6 degrees, true black moon Lilith, in this chart labeled LIL with an O in parentheses. And Lilith is not laughing at you. It's just stands for oscillating apogee. And so the square to Lilith says there could be even some, in Aries, even some conflict. And if we tie in the Chiron together, it might be important to develop some boundaries and say, look, I just set all this stuff up. I need to have some quiet time. I can't be there for you right now. And if somebody else doesn't like that you can't be there for them, have compassion. Another kind of Cancerian keyword. And also what people with Chiron issues are growing into, compassion. Okay, so yeah, so that is it for this one. Let me just go here, do that. Okay, let me go back to my notes. Okay, so the next thing is to kind of do some overlap stuff here. The sun will then approach a conjunction to Vesta next. After this eclipse, so the sun and the moon are at 0, 21, Vesta's at like 7 and change. So it's exact on Saturday, July 4th during the full moon, which we'll get to in a moment. But Sun and Vesta are within 5 degrees of each other from Wednesday, June 24th to Tuesday, July 14th. And in these forecasts, sometimes I mention that stuff. I don't cover all the asteroids all the time, but sometimes when something has a pattern like that, you know, it's going to be square Jupiter for 4 weeks, or, you know, conjunct the sun for 3 weeks or something. I'll often mention it. So again, from the 24th to the 14th. Now, Vesta is that need to focus on something important. So you might find yourself focusing on self-care, or you might find yourself focusing on care for others, or focusing on what you need to do to have stability, security, and rootedness, or keeping this group of people together. Either way, this idea of focus and devotion comes in, where it becomes important to you to nurture or provide to others, for yourself, both. And it could be it's kind of a wake-up call for some boundaries within certain relationships too, because I might really want to nurture you when you really want some boundaries and time alone. This is normal human stuff, and it can come up with this kind of aspect. Then the sun will be within 8 degrees of the transiting north in Gemini until Monday, June 29th. So for the first 9-ish days of the solar month, the sun's with, you know, still on the north node. Think about the transiting north node as offering some insight into an opportunity to resolve an old tension or an old problem. This is how I've received that teaching, for like third hand from another astrologer. And so the sun in Cancer on the Gemini north node, there's an opportunity in bringing Cancerian energy in. So it could be the energy of nurturing and understanding. It could be the energy of patience and giving someone room to express feelings, or you taking space by yourself to express feelings, to really look at what you're eating and how you nurture yourself. And you know, if you're sleeping okay. I often talk about sleep in terms of a 6th house Virgoan kind of thing, but it's also a 4th house Cancerian moon kind of thing, because it's what you need, a focus on what you need. Okay, so then it will square the Chiron the next day on June 30th at 9 degrees while the sun is conjunct retrograde Mercury. So with this is a minor thing, but just this idea of like, you know, the sun's putting light on the Cancerian concerns, and then toward the end of this period, square the Chiron, it can bring up some insecurities about who has the right to feel what when. And for some of us, this may be somebody says, you know, 3 months ago when you said that thing, it really bothered me, and you didn't know. Or maybe you realize, wait a minute, I need to say, oh, hey, friend, 3 months ago when you said this thing, it really bothered me. You know, maybe it's about going back to an old thing in order to be connected now in a more relaxed, gentle, trusting way, right? The Chiron and Aries thing. Do I have the right to say yes and no? Do I have the right to be upset about something? Do I have the right to be angry? Well, anger comes from pain, so of course you do. But you might need to resolve that in order to have that Sun in Cancer resolution of, let's full moon. We're going to go back to the little presentation here. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Boom, boom. Okay, good. Capricorn full moon, Sunday, July 4th, 2028, 9:44 p.m. Pacific. So obviously here in this part of the USA. Again, ignore the houses. We have this lunation at 1338 Capricorn. So Sun, of course, 1338 Cancer, and it's really tightly conjunct the Vesta. So what I want to say is the obvious thing around this full moon in early July is the feeling, the need, the I'm sensitive, the you said this and whatever, whiny, things aren't fair, whatever. Like that's the obvious thing. With Vesta, you might find yourself really invested in being of, it's a different route, I looked it up, but really being invested in caring or nurturing, right? Or doing something for somebody or for a group, holding this group together, doing something for the community. And you might also find yourself really focused on your own thing and not so available for others, and vice versa. You might find other people really focused on you, but you're trying to just like take care of yourself. So realize again, the boundary thing with Cancerian stuff is important. You know, just because somebody wants to feed you doesn't mean it's time for you to eat. just because somebody thinks that you look thin doesn't mean you need to overeat. Just because somebody thinks you look cold doesn't mean you need to accept having a blanket around you, right? You do get to take care of yourself, but the Sun Vesta thing may have some people inspired, you know. And then it's conjunct about 6 degrees the retrograde Mercury. So some of these things about communication and boundaries and rethinking things about nurturing could be a theme while the Sun is conjunct the retrograde Mercury, right? Now this is toward the end of Mercury's retrograde period. So we, quote, so to speak, been through a lot, unquote, and so to speak, been through a lot with this, where we, you know, for was it June 17th to July 4th, so you know, at least over 2 weeks, not the whole time, where we experience I think it stations at 5.5 degrees, so not long after this, but we've been through the Mercury and Cancer ringer. Well, now Sun is with Vesta, so boundaries are very important. That's what I want to get at. Okay, and then so the obvious thing is need, you, me, us, we, right? Capricorn full moon says, but there needs to be some structure here, or there needs to be an intention. Somebody's got to be the grown-up, right? Somebody in this house has to grow up. And so there can be this call to balance the emotional expression. The Sun, the major influence is in the lens of Cancer, so it might be very obvious and easy to slip into the emotional stuff or the defensive stuff. I haven't even talked about that Cancerian archetype, defense. I haven't even mentioned it thus far today in this video. But there is a, you know, I'm so sensitive, but I don't want you to hurt me, but I want to sidle up to you, but I don't want to expose my heart. Anyway, it's very important with the Cancerian energy to catch ourselves being defensive or blocking things out. Well, but the Capricorn full moon says, yeah, but there's something productive you could do about whatever is excessive regarding emotions. Or, please, I told you to stop trying to feed me, just stop it. Or, please, you can take your blanket back. It might be like a boundary thing where somebody stands up and says, actually, I need to be in charge of myself, right? A Capricorn full moon. So the Capricorn full moon says there's a logic, there's a protocol, there's a process. Maybe we need some rules. Who's going to be the adult in this family? So that kind of counterbalance to what may seem like a Cancerian excess, right, or the focus on Cancerian energy. That's what this full moon does. And it is square Chiron. It's square Juno and Libra. So there's a thing in there about making sure that you are honest, that you are not withholding honesty to try to keep the peace. With a square to Chiron, and they're really almost exactly opposing each other. The square to Chiron, it echoes that a little bit too. How I need to say something to you, but I don't want to create conflict by saying it. But gosh, I'm really angry, and I feel like I'm going to say it angrily. How can? And the Juno says we can be diplomatic, but you have to make sure you're honest. You don't hold back what is really true here. Ceres and Nessus and Pisces are sextile the Capricorn moon trine the sun. And Ceres is about nurturing energy and who's going to provide for you. And Nessus is about learning how not to stifle instinct. It's a little different than the Lilith story that I tell about instinct. But Nessus is we live in two worlds. We're animals and we live in polite society. So how can I have what I want or take what I need without bothering people? So Nessus typically indicates that we're trying to suppress something so that we're not socially unacceptable or criminals. Nessus can be suppression of urges of all different kinds, like things that are violent and not cool, but also things like that's the last cookie. Can I take it? That kind of urge of like I want it or something, and I don't want to be rude. That's actually the office work party. That's a very Nessus kind of thing. But anyway, Nessus Ceres together, do you suppress what you know, the truth, Pisces, what you know you need to do for yourself, waiting for someone else to care for you? Capricorn full moon says, stop it. Grow up. You have to be the adult in this house. Okay. All right. Nope. Okay. Notes. All right. So still conjunct Vesta. The sun will trine Neptune Sunday, July 12th at 20 degrees. The Vesta thing's moving away. That stops on the 14th. But Sun Vesta together in Cancer. I care. I'm trying to devote some time here to you or me or us or your rootedness or happiness or health or whatever. Trine Neptune and Pisces, and it opens up the door for intuitive info, a conduit or a channel of intuitive info. Now, the Neptune, I believe, is retrograde at this point, which has to do with, and it's slow at this point because it hasn't been retrograde for very long, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a little less. And we're having, the need to rethink what we surrender to. So Sun Vesta in Cancer, I care about you. Neptune in Pisces, oh my God, what do you need? My heart opened and everything flew out toward you. So there is a need to orient toward a higher truth and have some intentions and not get, I don't want to use the word suckered, but sucked into a sad story just because somebody is yet to learn how to care for him or herself. Makes it sound really cruel, but just not to get suckered into something that's unhealthy. Have some boundaries, have some intentions, so you're not running around leaking all of your energy doing things that may not be your job in the first place. Still, it makes it sound mean and cruel. Okay, moving on. Now, then we have this thing toward the end of the month, starting Wednesday, July 8th, the sun will be opposing 5 degrees before Pallas Athene, retrograding in Capricorn. I'm just going to set this up for you because I consider when we have these like clusters of planets and asteroids together, like Saturn at 28 Capricorn to Pallas Athene at 18, and then you have the sun kind of like opposing all of them. It takes weeks, right? In that case, 10 degrees plus, I would say 5 days on either side. You might count 8 degrees of orb. Awesome. I support you in that. I just typically count 5 so that we're focused on where the juice is going to be. But so 5 degrees before the opposition to Pallas Athene on Wednesday, July 8th, and then in turn opposing Pallas Athene, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, all retrograde in Capricorn at this point. And then it will be complete after the month of Leo begins. So Sun in Cancer opposing these planets reveals a Cancerian perspective, like to the Capricorn planets. Oh, here's the Cancerian advice that I have for you. And what I wrote is, what are you missing in your Capricorn rethinking? Because all these planets are, these 3 planets in this asteroid are retrograde. What are you missing? Are you being hard on yourself because you're trying to fix a problem? Or you don't yet know how to fix a problem, so you might be judging yourself or really frustrated or feeling under a deadline? Did you forget compassion? Are you forgetting to be kind to yourself? Sun in Cancer says, hey, take a breath, be kind to yourself. Don't press. Cancer is a cardinal sign about action and initiation, but it's also about remembering that you're human and acknowledging that you have feelings, even if you're trying to get something done. So these planets in Capricorn, retrograding together for several months, we're just at the start of that process. They might, you might be really focused on fixing a problem or trying to understand what seems to have gone wrong. So you might feel pressure. And I wrote in here, do you forget yourself in this process? As in, do you forget your humanity? Are you bringing that with you? Now, in this process, the sun will square Eris and Aries Thursday, July 16th at 24 degrees Aries, Cancer Aries. And of course, Eris is squaring these other planets too, which I describe in the forecast material for subscribers in detail every month. But the square from Sun in Cancer to Eris and Aries, people have like these hot button issues that they react quite strongly to when they feel their raw nerves are exposed or their vulnerabilities exposed. And the Sun in Cancer, someone might inadvertently say something like, oh, do you need you look cold, do you need a coat? This is my example today. And the person who's hearing that has heard that 4 billion times, and this is the last straw. So it's like being triggered when Eris is involved. So, around July 16th, a few days before, a few days after, just take things in stride and don't take things so personally, because not everybody can see your thought process or understand what might set you off, or you might not be able to see what might trigger other people too. The other side of Eris is lighting fires under people. As in, if I know what your insecurities are or might be, I could tease you or bully you, or I could light a fire under you. I could push your buttons, or I could help you see that you're better than that thing that happened in your life, or you're not that feeling you have that might seem to limit you. So so I think about it in two sides of a coin: pushing buttons or lighting fires. Okay, then the last thing here is a Cancer new moon number 2. So we're going to go back to the presentation and start this little dealie over again. Let's see, to go like that. Okay, Monday, July 20th, 2020. 10:33 a.m. Pacific time. And this occurs at 28 Cancer 27. So this is just under 8 degrees conjunct Vesta. So there's that lingering effect of focus, devotion, really being focused on being of service in some way, maintaining something or investing in something. It's also conjunct the asteroid Lucifer at 246, so under 4 degrees away, which I consider a healthy orb to use, pretty strong in there. And the asteroid Lucifer is about aligning ego with a higher purpose. So we have another new moon. So let's talk about the Lucifer in terms of integrity. Another new moon in Cancer. So a second chance in a month to have the sense of navigate by sense. What am I feeling? What am I needing? What is my body telling me? Now, conjunct Lucifer, it's important that you trust yourself and that you develop your own voice of doubt that can help steer you, that you trust yourself. Now, opposing the Capricorn planets, not Pallas Athene necessarily, it's 9 degrees, but by extension, sure. But definitely the Jupiters, 7 degrees, the Pluto and the Saturn closer than that. And there's a sense of what I'm doing or involved with or what I feel pressure to work on. I actually might need to slow down and care for myself. So I need to trust myself that 16-hour days aren't going to work right now. Like, I need to realize my Cancerian sensitivity. And the Lucifer with the new moon says I need to trust that if I need to rebel, right, where's my motivation coming from here? If I say I can't work on this project for a day, or I can only work 8-hour days, or even for 2 days, 6-hour days, if you have that perspective, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to be difficult? Are you doing it to prove you have power? Or are you doing it because it's something that feels true to you and you need to rest or need to moderate your efforts? with Lucifer, we always ask, where is this coming from? Is it a need to be right or have the last word or assert dominance or something like egotistical something? Or is it because it feels right or it seems true? If it's the first one, it's stroking ego, which we learn over time doesn't really feel good in the end. Temporary, satisfaction, ego stroking isn't a long-term, lifestyle for most of for people who are sane and grounded. Sure, you got the last word in, but anyway, you're not happy. But anyway, to be happy, it's actually learning how to surrender your ego to serve something else. So it feels true to me. It feels true in my heart or true to my spirit. It has integrity, so that's why I'm doing it. But anyway, you might need to rebel in order to remind yourself to take care of yourself in some way. And it might go against the plan. Opposite Capricorn planets, especially Saturn and Pluto together, and Jupiter, but Saturn and Pluto. It's also square Eris in Aries, so there is a thing about pushing buttons and lighting fires. And it might be that if you say, like, let's say the whole family or the whole neighborhood is going to do something together, and one person says, I think I kind of hurt my knee and I don't want to mess it up, so I have to not do this. But nobody else can really see the knee, but the person can feel it and trusts it. Well, if other people are like, well, I don't want to do, and this sounds very like junior high or like 12-year-old kids thing, but just bear with me. And if someone else is like, but I don't want to do this either, and look, that person just opted out because, well, oh, I hurt my knee. Well, if that person doesn't feel, the second person doesn't feel like he or she has the right to opt out, then there could be an ego thing in there. So the first person might inadvertently push a second person's button. So the second person's like, who do you think you are? You're not going to like rake up all the leaves. The person's like, no, seriously, I hurt my knee. You just can't see it because I know the signs. Anyway, so who has the right to do what when? Well, you have the responsibility to monitor what you need and take care of it, even if others can't see it. If they think you're, coddling yourself or taking too much, it's because they might not have really given themselves the right, or they may not perceive they have the right to deviate from the plan. Anyway, it's kind of a long story, but I think the Eris thing deserves some explanation now and then, so I just took that opportunity to do that. And of course, the Eris is square the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter palace. So the Eris thing is coming out right now. Regarding anything you're trying to change in your life or re-engineer or fix or upgrade. All right, so let's see what this, yeah, so that is, that's it for this. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks again for playing. I hope the information is helpful. And I try to do this sun video each month. And if you want to subscribe and get the other forecasts and all the perks and the monthly classes and the channel meditations, you can do that at tdjacobs.com. And take care of yourself.